At my parents' Susan and Mark's lavish anniversary party, my sister Morgan was holding court. The whole thing was catered, an expense I knew they couldn't handle. Morgan, the eternal artistic prodigy of the family, was loudly describing the $5 million she needed to launch her new art studio. Then she spotted me, Elisa, standing near the door. She laughed, a high, brittle sound that made the whole table turn. "Eliza," she called out, "you're good with old paper, right? I'm sure you can chip in a few hundred." The table snickered. I just stood there, my face burning, feeling cornered, humiliated, and completely invisible, all at once. This has been my entire life. Flashing back, our childhood in suburban Connecticut was a masterclass in contrasts. There was Morgan, the prodigy, and then there was me, Elisa, the responsible one, which is family code for the one we don't have to worry about or pay attention to. Morgan's journey as an artist was a mandatory event for the whole family. I cannot tell you how many hours of my life were stolen by her screeching violin recitals. The entire family, parents, aunts, uncles, would be there, sitting in uncomfortable chairs, applauding a performance that sounded like someone torturing a cat. Meanwhile, my achievements, they happened in a vacuum. In high school, I won the state coding competition. I had designed an algorithm that optimized data sorting. It was a huge deal for me. I remember standing there, holding this big, ridiculous trophy, and scanning the auditorium, and not seeing a single familiar face. When I got home, I found out they forgot. They had to take Morgan to a special boat tuning appointment. The real kicker came years later. I was applying to grad school. I took the GRE and got a perfect score. Perfect. I don't mean pretty good. I mean a flawless 100% in every category score. I remember staring at the screen, my heart pounding. I ran home to tell my mom, Susan. She was in the kitchen, on the phone, looking frantic. I said, "Mom, look, I got a perfect GRE score." She barely looked up. "Oh, that's nice. Honey, that's great. Now, can you please be quiet? I'm trying to help Morgan with her artist's statement. This gallery application is a complete crisis." That was it. That was the moment. My perfect score was nice, but Morgan's inability to write a paragraph about her own art was a crisis that required all hands on deck. And that's when I learned the truth. We always focus on the golden child, the loud, narcissistic black hole that sucks up all the family's resources. We get angry at the Morgans of the world. But the real, lasting damage, that comes from the enablers, the silent betrayers. It wasn't just Morgan's fault. It was my mother, Susan, who actively chose to see my achievements as noise. It was my father, Mark, whose silence was a daily decision. He saw the injustice. He saw me being erased, and he chose to do nothing every single day, because keeping the peace with my mother was more important than protecting his own daughter. That passivity isn't just neutrality. It's an active, daily betrayal. It's the sin of the silent betrayer. And honestly, it's the one that cuts the deepest. My only escape became my grandma Judith's attic. She was the only one who ever really saw me. Her attic was quiet, dusty, and smelled like old paper and cedar. It was my sanctuary. She had this massive trunk filled with 19th century family letters, diaries, correspondences, old deeds. While the rest of my family was downstairs orbiting Morgan's latest emotional drama, I was upstairs, in the silence, losing myself for hours. I'd sit on the floor, carefully organizing the letters, learning to read the cursive, piecing together stories from 100 years ago. I found a peace in that past, in that tangible history, that I never once felt in my own present. I didn't know it then, but I was building my escape. I got a full-ride scholarship to graduate school. It was my golden ticket, my escape hatch. My parents' reaction, my mother, Susan, said, "Oh, that's wonderful, Elisa, but it's so far away. What if Morgan needs you?" My father, Mark, just grunted and asked if I'd be taking my old desk. Because Morgan needed more space for her art supplies. They didn't come on move-in day. Morgan had, and I'm not kidding, an emotional crisis about a shade of paint she'd chosen. So, my Aunt Diane drove me. She helped me haul my 2 suitcases up 3 flights of stairs, and before she left, she pressed a crumpled envelope into my hand. "Your Grandma Judith wanted you to have this," she said, her voice thick. "She's so proud of you, Elisa. We all are." Inside was $500, money I knew she'd been saving for months. That night, sitting in my tiny, empty dorm room, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't just going to build a life. I was going to build a fortress. College was a blur, but this time, the work felt like it mattered. It was for me. I got an entry-level job at my university's Special Collections Archive. It wasn't glamorous. It was mostly logging 19th century donor acquisitions in a cold basement, but it was quiet. And it was mine. That's where I met David. He was the senior curator, a man who spoke in quiet, precise sentences and seemed to see everything. About 6 months in, he called me into his office. He didn't say much, just pointed to a stack of cardboard boxes. "This is the donor backlog," he said. "Junk, mostly. See if there's anything in there we missed before we file it away." It was a test. I knew it, so I treated it like Grandma Judith's attic. I spent weeks going through dusty, forgotten papers. And then, I found it. It was tucked inside an old book of poetry, a single folded letter. The paper felt different. The ink was faded. But the handwriting, it felt important. I spent my lunch breaks, my evenings, my weekends in the university database. I cross-referenced the postmark, the handwriting, the type of paper. My heart was pounding. It was a lost letter from a major historical figure, written just before a famous battle. Everyone thought it had been destroyed. I did my research. I built my case. I didn't just walk into David's office. I brought a full presentation. I showed him the letter to the chain of custody. I'd pieced together the handwriting analysis. I'd compare it against known samples. He just stared at me for a full minute. Then at the letter. "My God, child," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Where did you learn to do this?" "It just like old paper," I replied. "That junk box letter. It sold at auction for $95,000. The university was ecstatic. David called me into his office again, and I thought I was getting a promotion. Instead, he looked at me, and his expression was almost sad. "Elisa, He said, "You are wasting your talent here. This isn't a hobby. It's a skill. You should be running your own firm." The thought was terrifying. Me, run a business, but the idea took root. I used the small bonus the university gave me, took out a loan, and emptied my savings. I rented a tiny, windowless office in a building that always smelled like burnt coffee. I started small, just doing authentication work for local collectors. But my reputation for finding things, it grew. 6 months in, a private collector hired me to appraise a small estate. Tucked in the back of a desk drawer, I found a manuscript everyone had overlooked. My first major commission. It was $150,000. I paid off my loan in a single day. My phone started ringing, and it hasn't stopped since. My firm exploded. When you become the person who can discreetly tell a billionaire if their $15 million historical document is a forgery, word gets around. Within a few years, I had my main office in Boston, and then satellite offices in New York and London. I was on planes more than I was in my own apartment. I built a reputation for being meticulous, but more importantly, for being discreet. But back home in Connecticut, I was still just Eliza, the quiet one who worked with dusty paper. My mother, Susan, would tell her friends, "Oh, it's a little hobby. You know, she organizes old things for the university. I think it keeps her busy." I never corrected her. I'm not even sure why. Maybe it was just easier. Maybe it was a private joke. Then, about a year ago, the dynamic shifted. My Aunt Diane called me, and she sounded worried. "Elisa," she said, "I don't want to meddle. But are your parents okay, financially?" I told her I didn't know. We never talked about it. She sighed. "It's Morgan. Her artistic debts are, well, they're drowning your parents. Honey, your mom took out a second mortgage, and your dad cashed in part of his retirement. They're going to lose the house." A cold, familiar dread washed over me. That old sting of responsibility. The responsible one. The one who's supposed to fix things, despite everything. I couldn't let them lose the house. It was the only home I'd ever known, even if it was a cold one. So, I did what the responsible child does. I opened my bank app. I set up an anonymous monthly transfer of $10,000 to my parents' account. I told my aunt I'd managed to scrape together a little to help out, and I let them believe the money was coming from a mix of supportive family, or maybe a small inheritance. The money helped them, but it also created a new, poisonous narrative. I was no longer just the invisible daughter. I was now Eliza, the noble, poor daughter, the one who was trying her best with her little hobby and eating ramen so she could send a few dollars home. The family dinners became almost unbearable. I'd sit there, wearing a simple gray cashmere sweater that cost more than their monthly mortgage, and listen to them. Morgan would show up, swinging a brand new luxury handbag, one I knew for a fact cost at least $3,000. "God, I'm so broke." She'd laugh. "I found this at an outlet. Can you believe the deal I got?" I knew a real from a fake at 20 paces. It was no outlet find. It was my money. My $10,000 a month ramen money was funding her shopping sprees. My mother would just beam at her. "Oh, Morgan, it's beautiful. You have such an eye for quality." Then she'd turn to me with that pitying look. "Elisa, honey, "You're looking a bit thin. Are you eating enough?" I just nod and sip my water. The irony so thick, I could barely breathe. But the real, true peak of this gilded deception, the moment that felt like something out of a dark comedy, happened about 6 months ago. My parents were so proud that Morgan was finally getting serious and taking business classes at a prestigious local university. A university I knew for a fact had a tuition of over $60,000 a year. My money. One day, I got an email. It was from the dean of that exact university. He had read a paper I'd published on 18th century forgery detection. He was personally inviting me to be the keynote guest lecturer for their annual Historical Authenticity in Business Symposium. I almost laughed out loud. I had to lie to my family. I told them I had a work conference in Chicago. I flew in, was put up in a 4-star hotel by the university, parting, and gave a 2-hour lecture to a packed auditorium of graduate students and faculty. The dean himself took me to dinner, calling my work groundbreaking. The whole time, I was thinking, is Morgan in one of these classes? Is she here, in this building, spending my money while I'm at the podium? The cognitive dissonance was making me dizzy. By day, I was running a multi-million-dollar international firm, but on Sundays, I was just Eliza. The disappointment, the girl who worked with dusty paper. Which brings us back to the anniversary party. 2 weeks before the event, my mother, Susan, called me, weeping, just full on, hysterical sobbing. "Elisa, I don't know what to do, your father and I. We just can't afford this party. Morgan says we have to, for our anniversary. But the cost, we're going to have to cancel." I was so tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the tears. Tired of the constant, invisible burden. "Mom," I said, cutting her off, "don't worry about it. I'll handle the food. I'll have it catered." There was a pause. "Oh, Elisa," she said, her voice dripping with that familiar, patronizing pity. "That is so sweet of you. But we can't let you do that. A high-end caterer, honey. That would cost. You can't afford that." "I'll handle it," I said, my voice flat. "Well, all right. But you're not taking out a loan, are you? It's just, you must have saved for a whole year for this." "Oh, Elisa, you are such a good daughter." I just nodded, paid the invoice from the high-end firm I use for my corporate clients in London, an invoice for more than they thought I made in 6 months, and hung up the phone. I knew, right then, that this whole thing was a bomb waiting to go off. We returned to the anniversary party. The food is great. The wine is flowing. And my family is blissfully unaware that they're enjoying a party paid for by my little hobby. I stepped away into my dad's old study to check on a client. I had a major deal closing an authentication contract for a newly discovered manuscript worth $950,000. I just needed to sign off on the final report. I was deep in concentration, my laptop plugged into the large 60-inch monitor on the wall, when the door burst open. In stumbled Morgan, my sister, half drunk and holding an aux cord. "Eliza," she slurred, "I need to borrow your hard drive. My phone's dead. And I'm the DJ." She was pointing at my high-spec encrypted drive. This wasn't a normal drive. It was a biometric, locked, military-grade piece of hardware that contained my entire business, my life, Morgan. No, I said firmly, not looking up. You can't. It's for work. Oh, come on. What work? She scoffed. Your little paper collection. Just give it to me. Before I could react, she lunged forward and yanked the drives cord out of my laptop. Instantly, a deafening, high-pitched security alarm blared from the drive itself. It's a feature I had installed in case of theft. It was ear-splitting. The music in the other room stopped. The chatter died. Within seconds, the doorway was crowded. My mother, my father, aunts, uncles. Everyone was staring. Morgan. What did you do, my mother? Susan snapped. It's not me, it's Eliza's stupid toy, Morgan yelled over the alarm, holding the drive like it was toxic. Give it to me, I shouted, grabbing it from her. The alarm was still screaming. My hands were shaking. I knew the only way to silence it was to unlock it. What's on there? Eliza Morgan sneered, her voice dripping with malice. Your diary. Your secret plans to bore the world to death with dusty paper. I ignored her. I plugged the drive back into the monitor's docking port, placed my thumb on the sensor, and typed in my 32-character password. The alarm stopped. The study was dead silent. And on the 60-inch monitor, in huge, unavoidable numbers, my corporate dashboard came to life. Net worth $21.5 million. Quarterly profit $7.8 million. Pending contract $950,000. I froze. I forgot it would auto-load. The entire family just stared. You could hear a pin drop. Morgan was the first to speak. She just whispered, "That's fake. It has to be fake." Then, I watched my mother's face. It wasn't joy. It wasn't pride. It wasn't even shock. It was rage. Her face turned a deep, blotchy purple. She took a step toward me. Her hands clenched, and she screamed. A rough, guttural scream. You have this, she shrieked, pointing at the screen. You have this. And you let us struggle. You let us nearly lose our house. Morgan has debts. I was so stunned I couldn't even speak. Then my father, Mark, stepped forward. My passive, silent father. He looked at me, not with confusion, but with a cold, hard calculation. Elisa, he said, his voice firm. Your mother is right. This changes things. Your sister deserves that $5 million for her studio. It's only fair. 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 That was the word that did it. Not the screaming, not the entitlement. That one simple word. Fair. And something inside me, a steel cable that had been holding me together for 30 years, finally snapped. Fair, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you forgot my state coding competition? But I had to sit through 16 of Morgan's screeching violin recitals. Was it fair when my perfect GRE score was nice? Honey. But her artist's statement was a family crisis. You want to talk about struggle? I've been sending you $10,000 a month. You want to talk about Morgan's debts? Who do you think has been paying them? The room was absolutely silent. My mother's face had gone from purple to a sickly, pale white. I was done. I was so done. I just walked out. I didn't say another word. I left my mother, Susan, standing there with her mouth open, I left my father, Mark, looking calculated and furious. I left Morgan, who just looked blank, like a computer that had crashed. I walked through the crowd of stunned relatives, grabbed my coat from the rack, and left the party I had paid for. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. A cyclone. My phone started blowing up before I even got to my car. A storm of texts, 47 missed calls in 1 hour. The family group chat, which I'd been silently ignoring for years, was a waterfall of rage, confusion, and demands. Then came the flying monkeys. Aunts I hadn't spoken to in 5 years were suddenly calling me, weeping, to tell me family is everything and you're breaking your mother's heart. Uncles I barely knew were emailing me long lectures about the moral obligation of wealth. It was insane. I turned my phone off. I went to my office on Monday morning, expecting to find some peace. My receptionist, a sharp woman named Chloe, buzzed my desk. "Elisa," she said, her voice unusually tight. "You have clients in the lobby? They say they're family. They don't have an appointment." My blood went cold. I walked out of my office, through the glass-walled hallway, past my team of researchers, and into the main reception area. And there they were. Susan, Mark, and Morgan. They looked completely out of place. They were staring, wide-eyed, at the 20-foot ceilings, the brushed steel, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. They looked at my head of authentication, who was walking by with an armed guard, taking a document to the climate-controlled vault. Morgan was clutching her handbag. My father was rigid. My mother looked greedy. "Elisa," my mother said, standing up, her voice trying to be warm. This is quite the operation. So much more than we pictured." "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice was flat. "We need to talk." My father, Mark, said, taking charge. In private, I led them to my main conference room, the one with the long, black marble table and a single, massive screen on the wall. They sat down, looking small and tacky in a room built by my success. My father cleared his throat. "We've discussed this. As a family." "A family discussion," I said. "Without the family member you're discussing." "Sounds about right." He ignored me. We've come up with a number. A way to make this fair. We've been through a lot. Elisa, your mother and I would like to retire. And Morgan has her studio to think of. I just stared at him. $5 million. Morgan blurted out, leaning forward. "That's what I need. $5 million for the studio, and to clear my debts." And my father is right. They deserve a retirement fund. It's the least you can do after lying to us for all these years. You owe us. Oh. You? There it was again. That word. That monstrous, toxic entitlement. All those years of being invisible. All those missed recitals and forgotten achievements. All those condescending jokes about my dusty paper. It all just crystallized into that one single moment. I didn't say anything. I just looked at my sister, then at my parents. Then, I very slowly, very calmly, took my phone out of my pocket. My mother, Susan, actually brightened. I think she thought I was about to start a wire transfer. I unlocked my phone, I opened my bank's app. I navigated to the transfers and payments page, then to recurring payments. And there it was. At the top of the list, monthly support, $10,000. I turned the phone around and placed it on the black marble table, so all three of them could see it. "Oh, I said. My voice quit. "You mean?" On top of this, I watched Morgan's eyes go wide as she read the line. I watched my father's face drain of all color. My mother just looked confused. "What? What is that?" "That," I said, "is the $10,000 I've been sending you every single month. The ramen noodle money I've been scraping together. The money that's been paying for Morgan's handbags and artistic debts and keeping your house from foreclosure." Morgan looked like she'd been slapped. You told us that was from Aunt Diane. I let you believe what you wanted," I said. I picked up the phone. My thumb hovered over the cancel payment button. "But you're right. You're my family. And you deserve to have this settled right now." And I pressed the button. A confirmation screen popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring payment?" I pressed confirm. The line item on the screen flashed red. And then it was gone. My mother, Susan, let out a gasp, a real, strangled, wounded sound, as if I'd just stolen the air from her lungs. Morgan's face. It was beautiful. The smug entitlement, the prodigy confidence. It all just melted away. And what was left was pure, unfiltered panic. She finally understood. The show was over. The funding was cut. "You can't do that," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You can't. We need that." "No," I said, standing up. "You don't. You're all adults. You can get jobs. Like I did." My father stood up, his face purple with rage. "You ungrateful little." I didn't let him finish. I pressed the intercom on the conference table. "Chloe, please send building security to the main conference room. We have some clients who are ready to leave." My mother started to sob. The real, performative tears I'd seen my whole life. My father was sputtering. Morgan just looked broken. They refused to move. It was bizarre and sad and deeply, deeply satisfying to watch three fully grown adults be politely but firmly escorted out of my building by two uniformed security guards. As the glass doors closed behind them, I stood there for a long time, just watching them argue with each other on the sidewalk. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt light. I felt free. The harassment, of course, didn't stop at the office. That was just the beginning. Morgan, predictably, went nuclear. She started a blog. She wrote these long, rambling, unhinged posts about toxic family wealth and the betrayal of secret hoarders. It was all very dramatic, painting herself as the victim of my dragon-like greed. My parents, on the other hand, tried a different tactic: new phone numbers, fake email addresses. They even tried to get through to me by submitting customer service requests on my company's website. "We have an urgent appraisal need." One read, "A family heirloom. Please have Eliza call her mother." It was pathetic. I had my team block every new number, every new email address. Finally, I had enough. I called my corporate lawyers. They didn't mess around. They sent one single, beautifully worded cease and desist letter. It didn't just mention the harassment, it outlined, in terrifying legal detail, the financial and criminal consequences of libel and defamation related to Morgan's blog. It pointed out that continuing this campaign would, in a court of law, be seen as extortion. And just like that, silence. The calls stopped. The emails vanished. Morgan's blog went private overnight. It has been 6 months since that day. 6 months of quiet, real, profound, beautiful quiet. I moved. I have a new home in a secure high-rise, one my family does not know the address to. I have a new phone number, a new personal email. I am, for all intents and purposes, a ghost to them. And you know what's strange? The world didn't end war. I didn't fall apart from guilt. My life just got better. My business is thriving. It turns out, my little family drama, which I was sure would ruin my reputation, actually attracted several new high-profile clients. They value discretion above all else. And the fact that I had kept a $21.5 million secret from my own family made them trust me implicitly. I went to visit Grandma Judith last month. I told her everything. Right from the start. She just sat there, listening, her hands folded in her lap. When I was finished, she just patted my hand. "Well," she said, to her voice clear, "it's about time. Your grandfather always said, you can't save a rotten tree. You just have to plant a new one." She's so proud of me. And the best part, the final, perfect, little piece of karmic justice, the universe just couldn't help itself. My Aunt Diane, who is very much still in my life, sent me a link last week. It was to Morgan's new Art World social media page. She's trying to rebrand herself as some kind of rare book collector. The post was a picture of her, holding up an old, leather-bound book. She was boasting about her rare find XL, a flawless first edition of a famous 19th century novel. She was going on and on about its history, its undeniable value, and how it was the cornerstone of her new collection. I just smiled. I recognized the book. I had authenticated that exact copy for a rare book dealer just last week. The dealer had a suspicion and wanted my firm's final word before he put it up for a major auction. It's not a first edition. It's not rare. It's a common $20 reprint from the 1950s. Bound in cheap leather to look old. A good fake. But a fake nonetheless. She blew what little money she has left on a lie. She's building her entire prodigy future on a worthless copy. And I'm the only person in the world who knows. I didn't say a word. I just liked the post. That's the real freedom. It's not about the money. Or the revenge. It's about the silence. For so long, I felt this crushing, invisible guilt. We're taught that family is everything. That blood is the one bond you can never, ever break. No matter how toxic, no matter how much it drains you, no matter how much it hurts, we're made to feel like monsters for choosing to save ourselves. But here, in the quiet, in my new life, I've finally learned the truth. That decision, that agonizing, painful, final decision to cut those ties. It wasn't an act of destruction. It was the final, necessary act of creation. Sometimes, you have to burn down the prison to find out who you are when you're finally, truly free. It wasn't about cutting ties with my blood. It was about For the first time, finding myself. Story 2. My children weren't invited to Thanksgiving this year because they were too much trouble. That's the official story. Anyway, the one my mother, Susan, fed me over the phone. But 10 minutes ago, my sister-in-law, Morgan, posted an Instagram story. It was a video panning across at least 5 different elaborate desserts with the caption, "Getting ready for the big party. Can't wait to see everyone." I stared at my phone, at the laughing emoji she used. That familiar, cold feeling settled in my stomach. A big party. Too much trouble. Right? The phone call came 2 weeks ago. My mom, Susan. Her voice was bright. That fake cheerful tone she uses when she's about to deliver bad news. "Hey, honey, just wanted to check in about Thanksgiving." I already knew. I could feel it. "We're thinking of doing something much smaller this year. Kimberly. Just, immediate family. It's all getting so complicated." I waited. The other shoe always drops. It's just Lily's gluten issue. And little Leo, with the nuts. I just worry so much about cross-contamination in the kitchen. It's so much trouble. Honey. And I don't want you to have to bother with it. Trouble. That's the word. My kids. Lily and Leo. Are trouble. My brother Kevin's kids. Their energy. Kevin is the golden boy. 2 years older than me. And has never done a single thing wrong in my parents' eyes. His 3 kids can scream, break things, and throw food. And my mom, Susan, just laughs and calls it spirit. My kids, who are quiet and polite, have allergies, and that makes them too much trouble. "Oh," I said, it'll just be easier this way. Honey," she said, her voice dropping into that confidential whisper. "Just us and Kevin and Morgan and their kids. You understand. Right. Just a small, quiet dinner." I didn't answer right away. I was just thinking about every other holiday, every birthday, every event where my family was an afterthought, where my role was to be the understanding one, the one who never made a fuss. My husband, Eric, saw my face when I hung up. He didn't even have to ask. "The allergies, again," he said. His voice was tight. I nodded. "They're having a small dinner. Just Kevin's family. It's easier." Eric let out a sharp sigh. "Easier. Kimberly. They don't even try. They just don't want to be inconvenienced." I know he's right. But Nate's never been on the receiving end of my family's pecking order. He gets the polite smiles. I get the side eyes when Leo won't eat something. Or when Lily has to ask if there are nuts in the dessert. I didn't fight. Not then. I just told Eric it was fine. That we'd have our own Thanksgiving. Just the 4 of us. The kids were disappointed. But they're used to it. They've learned not to ask for too much from that side of the family. But that Instagram story, the big party, it wasn't small. It wasn't just immediate family. It was a lie. A cold, deliberate lie to exclude my children. And I was done being the understanding one. Even after that. Even after seeing Morgan's story, a stupid part of me still wanted to be decent. So on Thanksgiving morning, I spent 2 hours making 2 perfect safe pumpkin pies. No gluten, no nuts, a peace offering. Maybe, or Maybe just proof that my kids weren't too much trouble. I told Eric I just wanted to drop them off. Be the bigger person. He didn't argue, but I saw the look in his eyes. I drove over around 3 p.m. Their street was packed. I had to park 2 blocks down. That was the first clue. The second was the noise. I could hear laughter from the sidewalk. I walked up the driveway, still holding the pie carrier. I didn't even get to the porch before I saw it. The front windows were wide open. My dad, Robert, was pouring wine for a neighbor. My brother, Kevin, was laughing with a group of guys I didn't recognize. And my sister-in-law, Morgan, was flitting around, holding a tray. Her big party in full swing. Friends, neighbors, people who definitely weren't immediate family. There was no small dinner. There was no worry about cross-contamination. Just a house full of people my mother had chosen over her own grandchildren. I stood there for a long time, just watching. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry. I was just done. The cold feeling I'd had in my stomach for 2 weeks finally settled. It was clarity. I turned around, walked back to my car, and put the pies on the passenger seat. I drove home in silence. That night, after Eric and I put on a movie for the kids, I cut into those pies. I put a big slice in front of Lily and Leo. Their eyes lit up. I thought this was for Grandma's house. Lily said, "Nope." I said, "It's all for you." I watched them eat, laughing and getting whipped cream on their faces. And I took a picture, just a simple, happy photo of my kids eating the pies they were uninvited for. I opened Instagram. I attached the photo, and I wrote the caption I'd been drafting in my head all afternoon. Turns out our too much trouble. Thanksgiving was actually pretty sweet. So thankful we made these safe pies to eat at home, since we heard there was too much worry at the main party. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, even those who lied about being worried about my kids. And then, I tagged them. All of them. My mom Susan, my dad Robert, my brother Kevin, and my sister-in-law, Morgan. It didn't take long. Not even 5 minutes. My phone started buzzing. My mom, Susan, calling. Once, twice, a third time. I let it go to voicemail. Then the Instagram DM notification popped up. It was from Morgan. Her message was long, and I could feel the passive-aggressive chill through the screen. "Kimberly, I don't know what you're trying to imply, but this feels incredibly unfair. You're making everyone uncomfortable. Your parents are so stressed out. You really should delete this and talk to them privately instead of putting on a performance like this." A performance. That's what she called it. I read the message twice. She wasn't angry that they had lied. She was angry that I had told the truth. She wasn't sorry my kids were hurt. She was annoyed that she was uncomfortable. But the night was just getting started. I wasn't finished. Eric sat next to me on the sofa, watching me read Morgan's message. He just shook his head. "So, what now? Are you going to delete it?" "No," I said. I locked my phone and tossed it on the cushion. "I'm not. But there's something else. Something I should have told you years ago." He turned to me, his expression serious. "Okay. What is it?" I took a deep breath. The shame was so thick I could barely speak. "It's about my parents. And money. I've never told you the whole truth." I explained that 7 years ago, when my dad, Robert, took his early retirement, It wasn't really a choice. They were in financial trouble. They were about to lose the house. I helped them. I said, my voice quiet. I took over their HELOC payment, their mortgage. Eric just stared at me. Help them? What do you mean? I mean, I've been paying it. I said, $800 every single month for the last 7 years. I watched him do the math in his head. His eyes widened. 7 years, Kim. That's over $67,000. $67,200. To be exact. I know. I whispered. He wasn't angry. He was just stunned. He knew I helped them, but he thought it was small things. Groceries here. A utility bill there. Not this. Not the foundation of their lives. Why? He finally asked. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was embarrassed, I said. And because I knew why I was really doing it. I pulled my phone out again, but this time, I didn't open Instagram. I opened my banking app. There's a term for this. It's a psychological trap. It's called the provider scapegoat phenomenon. It's what happens when one child in a family is conditioned to believe their only value is in what they can provide. The golden child, my brother, Kevin, gets love and approval just for existing. He gets the parties, the praise, the emotional inheritance. The scapegoat me gets the bills. We're conditioned to think that if we're just useful enough, if we're generous enough, if we cover enough payments and solve enough problems, then one day, we'll finally earn the same unconditional love they get for free. It's not kindness. It's not charity. It's a payment. It's the price of admission. It's a $67,000 fee for a seat at the table. And they just told me my kids weren't welcome. I looked at Eric. I was paying to belong. Eric, I was paying for them to love my kids. And they still lied to their faces. I found the recurring payment. Robert and Susan, mortgage. The next one was scheduled to go out in 3 days. My finger hovered over the button. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I pressed cancel. I still held on to one last stupid thread of hope. My brother, Kevin, we weren't close. Not really. How could we be? He was the golden boy. And I was me. But he was still my brother. Maybe. I thought. Maybe he just didn't know the whole story. Maybe he didn't realize the extent of the lies. So I sent him a private text. I didn't attack him. I just laid it out. Kevin, I need you to talk to Mom and Dad. They told me Thanksgiving was a small, immediate family thing because of the kids' allergies. I drove by. And it was a massive party with friends. They lied to exclude Lily and Leo. This is wrong. And they need to fix it. I waited. The typing bubble appeared and disappeared for 20 minutes. Then the reply came. And it was the final nail. Calm down. Kim, you're overreacting. So they had some friends over. It's not a big deal. Look, I know you help them out a lot. My breath caught. I mean, you and Eric make good money. He continued. It's the least you can do for them. Right, you're a senior PM. Just let this go. Don't ruin the holidays over one dinner. I read the text 3 times. It's the least you can do. He knew. He knew I was supporting them. And he didn't see it as a gift. He saw it as an obligation. My success wasn't something to be proud of. It was something for them to use. My $67,200 gift was, in his eyes, just the bare minimum, just me paying my dues. That was it. The last thread snapped. It wasn't just my parents. It was him, too. He was complicit. He was benefiting from the system where I paid for everything. And his kids got the love. I didn't reply. I just blocked his number. After that, the silence was absolute. The first of the month came and went. The $800 payment didn't transfer. No one said a word. No, hey. Was there a problem with the bank? Not even a text from my dad. Robert, with a simple question mark. Nothing. They were too proud, or too embarrassed, to admit they'd been caught. Weeks went by. We got through Christmas. Just the four of us. It was quiet. It was peaceful. Then, 3 days before New Year's, an email popped up. A flashy, glittery Evite. You're invited. Join Robert and Susan for a New Year's Eve open house. Let's ring in the new year together. All family and friends welcome. It was from Morgan. Of course it was. I stared at the animated, sparkling champagne glasses on the screen. All family and friends welcome. After being told my kids were too much trouble for a Thanksgiving dinner, now they were suddenly welcome at a crowded New Year's Eve party. I saw it for exactly what it was. A PR stunt. A cleanup job. They didn't want to apologize. They just wanted to smooth things over with a performative invitation. They wanted to post photos with my kids to prove to everyone that we were all one big, happy family again. They thought a party with a glittery Evite could buy my silence and erase the humiliation. They still had no idea who they were dealing with. I took a screenshot of that tacky andesite, glittery Evite, the one that said, "All family and friends welcome." I posted it right to my Instagram story. I didn't tag anyone this time. I didn't need to. My caption was short. And it was sharp. So thrilled to see my kids' too much trouble allergies were magically cured just in time for the New Year's Eve party. I added a little champagne glass emoji. My children don't need performative love. We'll be busy. This time, the explosion didn't take 5 minutes. It took 2, but it wasn't my mom. Susan, calling 3 times. It wasn't Morgan sliding into my DMs with her polished insults. This time, my dad, Robert, called. And he didn't even call me. He called Eric. My husband's phone lit up, and he picked it up, looking confused. Robert, hey. Yeah. She's right here. What's going on? I watched Eric's face change. He went from confused to annoyed to just cold. Robert, I'm not having this conversation with you, Eric said, his voice suddenly hard. You're not going to call my phone to complain about my wife. You need to talk to her. Hold on. He held the phone out to me. I took it. Hello, Kimberly. His voice was heavy, filled with that deep, disappointed tone he'd mastered my entire life. The one that always made me feel small. You need to take that post down. Now. No, I said. My voice was calm. You are tearing this family apart over a simple misunderstanding. You are embarrassing your mother. This has gone on long enough. A misunderstanding? I almost laughed. There was no misunderstanding. You lied. You told me my kids were too much trouble. And then you threw a party for your friends. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice. He sighed. That heavy, put upon sound. We just want this to be over. Kimberly, we want to be a family again. Just take it down. And we can all move past this. Move past it. You haven't said a single word to my children. Not one. You haven't even said their names. They're kids, he said, his voice rising. They don't understand all this drama. They understand being left out. I said, they understand being told they're not wanted. I took a deep breath. This was it. The last chance. But you're right. I want this to be over. Too. So I'll make you a deal. What deal? He said. Suspicious. I will take everything down. The pie picture. The Evite story. All of it. I will delete every single word. It will all go away. He waited. And you and Mom come to my house. You sit on my sofa. You look my children, Lily and Leo, in their eyes. And you apologize. You tell them they matter. You tell them you were wrong to lie and exclude them. You do that. Not to me. To them. And this is over. There was a long, cold silence on the line. I could just hear him breathing. I waited. Then he spoke. And his voice was flat. You're being cruel. Cruel. That was the word he chose. After all of it. Me. I was the cruel one. No. I said. And my voice was just as flat. Just as cold. Cruel is telling your grandchildren they're not welcome because of their allergies, and then throwing a party. Cruel is letting your daughter secretly pay your $67,000 mortgage for 7 years while you treat her children like they're disposable. Kimberly. He started, but I cut him off. I'm done. This isn't cruelty. Dad, this is called consequences. And for the first time in my entire life, I hung up on him. After I hung up on my father, the silence was absolute. The New Year's Eve party came and went. I saw the pictures Morgan posted. My parents, my brother Kevin, all smiling, holding champagne glasses, surrounded by friends. Not a single person missing. Not a single comment asking where we were. Then, January 5th came. The day the $800 transfer was supposed to go out. It didn't. Silence. February 5th. The second missed payment. Silence. March 5th. The third. The silence was so loud. It was almost deafening. They were trying to hold their breath. Trying to pretend they didn't need me. Pretending that $67,000 of support was just optional. Then, on a Tuesday night in mid-March, Eric's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his eyebrows shot up. It was my father. Robert. Eric answered, putting it on speaker. Hello. Eric. Thank God. Listen. I have a problem. My father's voice was thin, high-pitched. I'd never heard him sound like that. He sounded terrified. What's wrong? Robert. Eric asked. His voice neutral. It's the bank. Eric. They're calling me every day. They're talking about foreclosure. They're saying we're 3 months behind. 3 months. There must be some kind of mistake with the account. Some kind of computer glitch. I didn't know who else to call. He was rambling. The panic pouring out of him. He still couldn't bring himself to ask me. He couldn't even admit he knew where the money came from. It was just a glitch. Eric looked at me. I shook my head. Just once. Eric took a slow breath. "Robert," he said, and his voice was incredibly calm. "There's no glitch. There's no mistake with the account." A long pause. "What? What do you mean?" my father whispered. "I mean, Kimberly's payment was canceled," Eric said. "It wasn't a glitch. It was a choice." I could hear my father's breathing. It was sharp, ragged. You can't," he stammered. "You can't do this. This is our home. Kimberly. Are you there, Kimberly? This isn't. You're being cruel. This is your family." I picked up the phone. "No," I said, my voice clear. "My family is right here. In this room. My family are the people who don't lie to me. My family are the people I'm playing a board game with." I didn't raise my voice. "You need to call your son. Dad, Kevin makes good money. Remember, I'm sure he'll think it's the least he can do." I hung up. We didn't hear from them again. A few weeks later, I had to drive through their old neighborhood for a work meeting. I took the long way. Just to see. And there it was. A bright red "for sale" sign hammered into the front lawn. My brother Kevin's real estate agency wasn't on the sign. I guess he wasn't stable enough to save them after all. I pulled over to the curb and just looked at the house I grew up in, and I realized why they were always so arrogant, so sure of their place in the world. There's a concept called the power fantasy of an empty wallet. It's when people build their entire identity, their entire sense of superiority, on an invisible pillar. For 7 years, my $800 a month was that pillar. It was the secret foundation that held up their parties, their pride, their ability to look down on me and my troublesome kids. They never realized that the person they disrespected the most was the one holding the entire fantasy together. The moment that pillar was removed, their whole world collapsed. It wasn't a tragedy. It was just gravity. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I just felt quiet. I drove home. When I walked in, Lily and Leo ran up and hugged me. Eric was in the kitchen, making dinner. We sat down. Not at a big, fancy table, but at our small kitchen table. We played a game of sorry, and the kids laughed so hard they almost fell out of their chairs. It was loud. It was messy. It was real. I thought about the guilt. The guilt of cutting off your own blood. But there's a truth that's taken me a lifetime to learn. We're taught that family is blood, that it's an obligation. But that's not right. Family isn't an obligation, it's a refuge. It's supposed to be the one place in the world you are safe. When your blood is the place you are least safe. When it's the source of the lies and the disrespect. You have to make a choice. It's not an act of revenge to walk away. It's an act of profound self-preservation. It's an act of healing. You're not destroying a family. You're just finally closing the door on a house that was never really your home. You're letting go of the bloodline so you can finally find yourself and build a new home. One where love isn't conditional. One where you don't have to pay to belong. One where everyone, allergies and all, has a seat at the table. Yes.